this part of the afternoon, we've been talking about look everywhere for innovation. And we had a chance to hear about some of the amazing work that's happening all over the world. But for this particular session, I wanted to take a different look, a different angle at that. I actually want us to look inward. And I want us to explore how our inner world impacts our search for innovation in the outer world. Our emotions tend to be overlooked when we think about how do we look for innovation in the world. We think about the what and the how, but we rarely think about our personal emotions, our inner world, and how they impact that search. We know that innovation requires new mindsets. We've been hearing about this throughout the morning as well. New ways of thinking, new questions, new ways of framing what we're talking about. Einstein said it beautifully, that the significant problems that we face cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created them. Proust said it a different way. The real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So again, we're talking about this inner world, the way we think, the way we see, our mindsets. Our mindsets, which consist of our attitudes and feelings and beliefs in relation to how we understand the world. Inner world impacts our ability to engage the world. And in particular, when it comes to innovation, our inner world impacts our ability to search for innovation. Otto Schirmer, a professor at MIT, talks about this blind spot when he says that the blind spot of leadership, and not just individuals, but at a systems level, has to do with the fact that we are so focused on the what and the how. How do we innovate? What is innovative? Yet we overlook the source, the who, the individual, the person asking the questions, the person that's framing the opportunities around this, the inner place from which we operate. We tend to overlook that because we're focused on the what and the how. Now, before I get into how the inner world impacts that, I'm very going to briefly cover the U process, which Mai covered earlier briefly as well, so I'm glad she did that. But essentially, Otto Schirmer and his colleagues created this process, which essentially has these 5 different phases where you get together with a group of people, diverse group of people with an intention. You then observe what emerges, things that you're noticing. Then you create a space for the emerging future to come to you. And then you take those insights and you put them into actions and prototypes, and then you validate them and you scale them. It's a very short abbreviation of the U process. I encourage all of you to check it out at presencing.org. Now, Otto described that as we go down the left side of the U process, we're going to encounter some enemies, if you will, from our inner world. The first one is the voice of judgment. As we begin to engage other people that are different than us, and we begin to hear their points of view, we're thinking, oh, that's stupid. That's good. I don't like that. We have an inner narrative happening all the time. And that's what he called the voice of judgment. So that voice of judgment can get in the way. So for this, Otto and U process suggests what he calls an opened mind, which I'm calling here the voice of curiosity. So when we hear the voice of judgment, we have a counter voice, which we also have, which is that of the voice of curiosity. So if we're able to hear that voice of curiosity, we can go a step further down in the U process. And then the voice of cynicism comes up. We begin to become skeptical about that person. What are their motives? What's in it for them? And this can impact, again, that empathic connection. And this is particularly important when you're collaborating and you're building alliances. That voice of cynicism can really get in the way. And again, this process can go away. And for this, open heart is a particular invitation, which I'm calling here the voice of appreciation. That can help us go past that voice of cynicism. If we make it past this hurdle, there's one more, the voice of fear. The voice that tells us, what if we fail? And for this particular voice, he recommends open will, or what I'm calling the voice of acceptance. Really letting things emerge as they are. And then taking those insights and begin to put them into action quickly. And that's the other side of the theory. But for the purposes of today's activity, these are the voices in our head that we all have. We all have narratives and inner voices in our head, and that's okay. But essentially, these voices serve as filters. When you're in a conversation and your filter is the voice of judgment, you're going to hear some things and not others. If you're thinking about, well, do I like this, do I not like that? You're going to be missing out on information. If you have the voice of curiosity, you may get more information. So these voices act as filters. Our inner world is impacting our way of engaging others and discovering new things. And all this is part of our worldview, our inner world. This is happening all the time. But what happens is when you ask people to be aware of their worldview and of their biases and blind spots, when you ask them to challenge their blind spots, you're asking them to question who they are. Remember, our mindset speaks about my identity, who I am in the world, and in relation to it. You know? But we need to do that. We need to be able to go beyond our comfort zone to get to that place of innovation. But that jump, again, intellectually we may get it, emotionally it can be difficult because we're playing with an emotional fire. We're playing with the core of who we are and how we understand the world. Our reality is not out there, it's how we understand it in here. And if we don't create the conditions to properly do this, we can create a wildfire. And so sometimes you get a lot of people that are very cynical, frustrated, traumatized from experiences trying to come together. And when we didn't create the conditions to do that, we didn't create the hearth to contain that fire. And in our experience, one of the powerful hearths is that of the stage. You know, we talked about that Promethean Communities uses the stage and the lenses because on the stage, we are able to create, become somebody else. We can be who we are and yet be somebody else. On the stage, we can bring those inner voices to life, those blind spots, and actually engage with them in a way with others and learn new things. And on the safety of the stage, that's less scary because it's not real. I'm acting, right? It's not really me. But at the same time, it is real, and you gain insights from that stage. So essentially, the stage becomes a social emotional gym where we build the muscles of empathy, creativity, and curiosity. And these are the skills that allow us to be able to hear the voice of curiosity, the voice of appreciation, the voice of acceptance. And when we're able to build these muscles of empathy, curiosity, and creativity, we're able to then strengthen this space. This space that Viktor Frankl had said, between the stimulus and the response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. In that space lies our ability to recognize that blind spot that's keeping us, limiting our particular worldview, and perhaps is allowing us to miss out on innovation. When we're able to hold the space and recognize our blind spots and recognize the fear that comes with perhaps challenging that, and we can go beyond that, just beyond that edge, there may be innovation.